Hey everybody, welcome back to IGN Movies, Keeping It Real. Well, we're back, but without Chris Carl.
May he rest in peace.
He is he is sailed on like at the end of the Lord of the Rings trilogy to CBS. But last week was all about him. Today, the Oscars.
A natural progression.
A natural
from Chris
progression.
To Oscars.
A lot is being said about the nominees and the snubs. So let's dive in. I'm going to rattle off just the Best Picture nominees real quick because I think that there were some usual suspects there and some films that that were snubbed. So let's do this. So Best Motion Picture of the Year, the nominees are The Big Short, Bridge of Spies, Brooklyn, Mad Max Fury Road, The Martian, The Revenant, Room, and Spotlight.
Which is 8 out of a potential 10 that could be Best Picture nominees. I think for me, I'm really excited Mad Max got nominated. The fact that, it didn't do too hot at the Golden Globes sort of made me feel like it could be overlooked, worst case scenario. Yeah. But beyond that, I think it's looking at the movies that came out this past year, it's the usual crop of films that if you were to pick out the most likely Oscar contenders, those were the ones that were nominated. There weren't any big surprises. And also one of the things that's been talked about a lot is that for the second year in a row, all the Best Actor and Supporting Actor nominees are white.
Hashtag Oscars are white.
Right, but this is a year we had Creed, we had Straight Outta Compton, we had these movies that were getting a lot of buzz and could have been nominated, and the only person who ended up being nominated was Sylvester Stallone for Creed, I believe.
Yeah, and for his, and I mean, he'll probably win, and we're not going to do our Oscar predictions. That'll be a separate show down the line. We're going to make you wait for that. But there was a surprising number of snubs this year, and there were a lot of good movies across the board. But it is, without a doubt, it's just pure lily white. It's like, it's not even as white as that, okay?
And I think this is our annual reminder of, hey, the vast majority of Oscar voters are old white men.
Yeah.
So I think that the nominees definitely reflect that, but at the same time, there were a lot of people who were like, oh, you went for The Big Short for a lot of stuff. Could you have done Hateful Eight or Creed or some of these other things?
They could have 10, and I loved Creed. Creed was one of my favorite movies last year. That should have been nominated for Best Picture. I'm sure there's, I'm not a member of any of the local critics guilds or anything like that. So, but I hear that, Warner Brothers didn't really campaign for that, and they didn't realize until late that Mad Max was going to be a prestige picture for them. And I just want to point out earlier, I think I meant to say that this wasn't as white as the Oscar nominations. I'm probably messing with the camera by keep holding up a white
balancing
sheet.
It. But for the snubs.
But here are some more snubs in the Best Picture category. So yes, Straight Outta Compton, which I thought was really good.
This is for picture.
For Best Picture, but I didn't think it was Best Picture material. I thought it was a really good biopic, but it was pretty traditional. However, that being said, lesser films have been nominated for Best Picture, so I would have been fine with it getting nominated, but I wasn't. Creed wasn't nominated. That pissed me off because I love that movie. Hateful Eight didn't get nominated. Steve Jobs didn't get nominated, and there was a lot of talk about that movie just a few months ago, and then it tanked. And
steamrolled by Star Wars.
Steamrolled by Star Wars, although Star Wars didn't get nominated either.
We'll talk about that later.
Carol, which seemed like a big Oscar bait movie.
And both Rooney Mara and Cate Blanchett were nominated for supporting actress and actress, respectively.
Yeah. And then, come on, Jim, read your own writing. All right. Ex Machina didn't get a Best Picture nomination. I can't say I'm too surprised, but disappointed. I would have liked that. It did get a screenplay nomination, though.
And special effects.
And special effects. And in those categories, actually, in special effects, it basically took the spot that could have gone at Jurassic World. And then for in screenplay, Aaron Sorkin didn't get a nomination for Steve Jobs. And everyone was just talking about Sorkin in the screenplay for Steve Jobs. Mm-hmm. I do wonder if it wasn't sort of a little blowback against him. I don't know. I don't know why. I mean, he gave wonderful roles to people in that movie with his writing, but Tarantino didn't get nominated for Hateful Eight, and a lot of people thought that was, oh, they'll just give him that.
Right.
And then there's some people saying that Amy Schumer should have gotten something for Trainwreck. That didn't happen.
In fact, I don't know that Trainwreck. I don't believe it got.
I don't think it got anything. And then best animated film. I think the big surprising snub there is the Peanuts movie, because I think a lot of people thought it would get one. Like, well, that was in the bag. Fox, like with the Golden Globes, they really led with all these. I guess we'll talk about the Golden Globes too in a minute, as well, a little later in the podcast, because those were this weekend and the winners.
But I think like Anomalisa and Inside Out were the obvious choices for the animated film category. I wasn't too surprised about the snubs there.
Yeah.
People loved Inside Out. It was very original. I think we had some issues with The Good Dinosaur. I think the general consensus was it was a bit of a stumble for Pixar. I'm not too surprised that was left out.
Minions made a lot of money, but did anyone really like it?
Yeah, I think that you can, as with any film, you can have your box office crowd-pleasing film, and then you can have something that is critically well-received a little bit more. So with animated film, I wasn't too surprised with the snubs, but actor and actress, we were talking about the list of snubs, and it was like 3 times as long as could ever even be in the category.
People who were on every front runners list just 6 weeks ago, gone. Like Johnny Depp for Black Mass, nope. Will Smith for Concussion, nope. Tom Hanks, Bridge of Spies, nope. Idris for Best Supporting Actor, Idris Elba, Beast of No Nation, nope. Nobody from Hateful Eight outside of Jennifer Jason Leigh for Best Supporting Actress. Jason Mitchell, who we nominated in the Best Supporting Actor category for Straight Outta Compton for his performance as Eazy-E, nothing there. Michael B. Jordan, Creed, nope. Who else did we get? No Oscar Isaac for Ex Machina. No Alicia Vikander for Ex Machina, but she did get nominated for Danish Girl. Which
they loved, which Eddie Redmayne also was nominated for that.
And then I haven't seen it, but I'm developing this anti-Eddie Redmayne thing for some reason. I don't know why. That's another discussion for another day.
We need to be excited for him in Fantastic Beasts, and he's a fantastic actor. I'm okay with him getting everything that he deserves.
Michael Keaton, Spotlight. Nothing for him.
Yeah, they ended up going Mark Ruffalo for supporting actor.
I thought it was Rachel McAdams for Best Supporting Actress. She was fine in the movie, but I don't think it's really Best Supporting Actress quality. But Michael Shannon, 99 Homes, nothing. Jason Tremblay from Room.
The young actor in Room.
Yeah.
But Brie Larson was nominated.
Brie Larson was nominated. She'll probably win, but again, we'll get to that. Other actress snubs. Helen Mirren, Woman in Gold, nothing. Emily Blunt, Sicario, nothing. Again, Alicia Vikander. Jane Fonda, Youth. Everyone thought, oh, she's got it in the bag. Nope. Some of the actors who were nominated, though, surprised me. Like Matt Damon in The Martian, they were talking about a Best Actor nomination for him months ago when that movie came out. And then that movie got shut out at the SAG nominations. So the takeaway was, oh, okay, actors kind of
people within the community who would be voting at the Oscars might not.
But now you wonder, is this nomination a reaction to that? I mean, and some people are just really good at campaigning. Like Bryan Cranston, every actor loves him, and he's a great campaigner. But Trumbo, I'm sorry, but that's like acting with a capital A in that one. I thought it was too broad, And then same kind of with Mark Ruffalo and Spotlight. His was the one performance in that movie that kind of irritated me. It was a little too ticky.
Yeah, I feel like there are the two sides of it, right? And people can complain. A lot of these people, the vast majority of these people, are well deserving of the nominations that they received. And I think talking about snubs isn't necessarily detracting about the people who were nominated. Yeah. But if you look at the nominees...
Sometimes.
Let's
not take all the fun out of it.
But if you look at the nominees, it's a lot of performances that I look at both on page and on screen, and I'm like, this is a performance made specifically to be campaigning. Yeah, it's just Oscar bait, and it's so like stereotypically exactly what that voting pool looks for.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's so disappointing, and why I was glad that Mad Max got a Best Picture nomination and some others, is because you look at films, and for me personally, I'm always looking for something that's trying something different. And we were talking about Bridge of Spies earlier, where you're like, I like that movie, I was fine with that movie, but it was just doing the same old thing that old white like male Oscar voters will vote for.
Well, I will say though, at the screenings that I went to, for that, it was old white Oscar voters, both male and female, and they are. I mean, I think the emphasis here is on old. I mean, there are a lot of members of the Academy who are very, very old, and I say this on my birthday, but I really think there might have to come a time where if you haven't worked in actually making movies for a while, like, you have to be retired out of the system. That way you do get a fresher kind of perspective, and maybe you actually see all the movies that are nominated.
And I think that's the thing that's missing with the Oscars, is that fresher perspective. And the reason why we keep saying old white male is because there was that statistic that came out a couple of years ago that said, like, I think like 76% or something along those lines
reality of
the Oscar voters are old white men.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think
she says as she looks at me.
Yeah, I say
birthday,
as I look off to the side, not looking at Jim. No, and I think
I mentioned it was my birthday.
in a time where we are getting these like new, fresh, innovative, really different in a world types of films, I personally, being a younger demographic than what the Oscar voters might be, am hoping to have that represented. And that's what we were talking about earlier, is like, you know, you see some of these people come through, and I think we will eventually see a shift and see some of that more experimental stuff be represented.
Yeah, like Tangerine was another one that was overlooked.
I'm glad that Anomalisa at least got animated film, though it might.
But they love, I mean, the industry likes Charlie Kaufman. Mm-hmm. So, oddly enough, isn't that movie about an old white guy?
Yeah, well.
Even in
at
animated
least it's a
form.
different way to tell that story visually.
Now, some of the other snubs that that surprised me, at least, in the director category. Mm-hmm. Ridley Scott for The Martian. The Martian gets all these other ones. Ridley doesn't get nominated. Lenny Abramson, director of Room, essentially took his spot, if you will. Ridley nominated for the Directors Guild, so now we have another kind of thing where somebody might win the DGA award, but they don't win the Oscar. So Ridley getting snubbed really surprised me. Steven Spielberg, Bridge of Spies, again, they love him, but you know what? He's Spielberg. They're like, you've got a lot of, you're okay. Danny Boyle, Steve Jobs, Ryan Coogler, Creed, F. Gary Gray, Straight Outta Compton, Todd Haynes for Carol. Again, like, seems like an Oscar bait movie. He didn't get nominated. And then Dennis Villeneuve, I hope I'm saying your name right, for Sicario. You know, these are just some notable snubs there. Of all those names, which ones were you most shocked by getting snubbed?
I think Ridley and Coogler of the two. I think that Creed really came out and was a movie that was both critically acclaimed and, you know, it did well. It was a box office hit, a hit with fans. And then also for the same reasons you said, Ridley Scott, The Martian, that was the same sort of perfect meeting of two sides, and to see The Martian represented in so many other ways. And maybe Oscar voters were just frustrated about the way that Ridley has been going back and forth about the alien stuff, and they were like, we're taking away your nomination for that.
You know what? This is for Prometheus. No. Or to keep on the old white guy tip, they're like, look, if it's down between two old white guys who haven't gotten it yet, George Miller and Ridley, I'm sorry, we only have room for George. You know?
I am so happy that George Miller got that nomination, though, because there was a time.
I think his chances just shot up. But again, like, we'll get to our predictions. But you know, his biggest competitor just got knocked out of the race. So it's you know, it'd be like if I don't know, if you're running for office and let's say you were one of the guys, you know, like Ted Cruz and Trump drops out. You know, you're like, hey, I guess my stock just went up. So. Moving on to some other surprise snubs. Best song, See You Again from Furious 7, which I think a lot of folks just thought it was a given. Nope, didn't get it.
Maybe they just didn't want Vin Diesel singing it again on stage like he was doing at the movie awards and everything.
But they gave them they gave Spector writings on the wall
Your
when
favorite
Chris
song
Carl
ever.
should have gotten it. Chris Carl gets snubbed. We're adding that here. Chris Carl, Spector, snubbed.
Spector.
We'll never forget. Never forget Chris Carl. That's really going to happen
I
now.
do
probably.
like how
That's
we
up there
keep
with the
making it
UK
seem
guys
like-
with Fist Dan Stevens, where they want Dan Stevens to play Iron Fist, so they started this hashtag. And then one other notable snub, Going Clear, the documentary on Scientology, which got so much buzz, but I guess it's kind of like this year's Blackfish.
Yeah.
Where it's another much talked about documentary, and nope. Nothing there. Overall, then, were you surprised at how well, say, something like The Revenant did with 12 nominations to get the most, and Mad Max with 10?
Mad Max it excites me, and I know that you adore The Revenant. You were a big fan of it, but I do think that is very much a movie made to be appreciated by other creatives.
It's the auteur movie, and you know what? It is an aloof movie. It does hold you at arm's length. I am surprised, frankly, that it's getting as much love as it is. I thought it would. I actually thought maybe it'd get overlooked a lot, but between this and the Golden Globes, I'm like, I guess they've decided this is going to be your big prestige picture that'll win.
I mean, I guess
year.
more Oscar and awards campaigns need to work the words raw bison liver into their pitches, but that really seemed to work.
How much
for
of
them.
this is all tied to, like, we just want to make sure Leo gets his Oscar, so we
Leo,
never
are
have
you
to
healthy?
hear about this.
Are you good? Yeah, I mean, again, we've been saying that we're gonna save our predictions for later down the road.
Tough to not kind of marry it up a little bit.
Yeah, but I do, again, not to beat a dead horse, but I would like to see.
There is a dead horse in The Revenant, so it actually.
I tie it all together, yeah.
There's a bit of a beating of the dead horse,
not
too.
to beat a massive vengeful bear to death, but I do.
I love Jonah Hill's
I
bit.
do, yeah. I do want to see some of the things that really excited me as a consumer, like Mad Max and some of those other films, be recognized instead of it just going to the obvious choices, which we've seen in previous years.
Now, some of the other stuff that happened this week with awards was obviously, well, actually, before I say that, let's talk about Star Wars not getting.
Yes.
Star Wars did not get a Best Picture nomination, and you know what? Good. It didn't deserve one. I'm sorry. I really enjoyed the movie, but it didn't deserve a Best Picture nomination.
Yeah, I think that movie is like exactly what fans want, and it is an awesome movie. It is so much fun. It is innately rewatchable. The new actors are all fantastic. I love what they did with those characters.
A lot of fun. I loved it.
But it's not an Oscar movie, and I
No.
think like the VFX stuff and editing and below the line stuff that it did get nominated for, all very fair. Harrison Ford was not going to get nominated as Han Solo for this movie. J.J. Abrams wasn't get nominated for directions. Yeah. I mean, it is interesting, right, when the Oscars made the shift to expand the Best Picture pool back after the whole Dark Knight fiasco, and everyone was like, how did this not get nominated? The idea, I think, from we readers' perspective was, oh, great, they're going to acknowledge more of these like big tentpole fan favorite movies. And no, it just fit in a lot more of the traditional
Well, it's
Oscar
also
movies.
too not like. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, no, I was just going to say, but I think because of that, you get stuff like Mad Max and The Martian making their way in.
Yeah.
This was not a year for Star Wars. Who knows? Maybe Rogue One, maybe Episode 8. Like, maybe those are going to be the movies that are worthy of it. Maybe they're just going to give it to Colin Trevorrow's Episode 9, like they did with Peter Jackson for Return of the King. But
I think
not this
that
year.
it's also. I mean, it's just. You can't help but kind of shake your head again to get back to the Oscar so white thing, but they really made an effort to be more diverse, like the campaigning of it all. Like you get Chris Rock to be a host, and it turns out like even freaking Lily are whiter than ever. And,
and that was the thing. Like last year, it had been many years since there had been not a single person of color nominated, and now it's been 1 year.
They're like, we can't have Oscar so white trending again this time. And you're like, damn what?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't even think it's like a PC culture thing, but there are just so many incredible actors out there. There are so many incredible performances.
Well, I'm
and
sure Chris Rock will just, not say a thing
yeah,
about
the same
it.
thing that Neil Patrick Harris said last year, where he was like, the best and whitest, sorry, brightest in our industry. I don't know. I think that part of creating media is creating something that reflects the world that we live in. And that's, I think, part of that social consciousness that has come out of that. So it's a little disheartening to see like the most prestigious movie ceremony not being on board with that.
Yeah.
People can do whatever the hell they want, but
Yeah. Well, that's the perspective of two white people.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's hear from you in the comments below. Were you surprised by any of the snubs, or surprised by anybody who got nominated? Let us know. Really curious what your guys' thoughts are on this year's Oscars race. Let's talk a little bit about the Golden Globes.
Which you and Joshua actually already did a little bit earlier this week, but now we'll do it in the context of the Oscars.
Yeah, we just want to say like that it was, The Martian. A lot of people were like, how is The Martian nominated for Best Comedy? Which I love that question coming up after it already won. Instead of like, it was nominated months ago. But
Right.
so The Martian, I think it was all about 20th Century Fox dominated both the Golden Globe race and the Oscar nominations, with The Revenant with 12 and Martian with 7. So it's, I think it was really about how the studio chose to campaign, and they're like, well, the movie's pretty funny, it'll have a better shot. There was no big musical this year.
And I think that might be something that people forget when they're looking at the nominees, or might not know if you aren't in this industry. But you can have the absolute best show or movie or whatever in the world, and if you can't get the voters to watch it, if you can't convince them, hey, give this your time, then you won't get nominated. And I think that's, there are like some smaller movies, maybe Ex Machina is one that they just couldn't get people to watch, and that's why it didn't get nominated.
And it was also interesting though that they did choose to A24 chose to run her as Best Supporting Actress rather than Best Actress. She's the only female character in that movie. Like, she should be Best Actress, but it was a choice made to campaign in that category because you thought it was going to be an easier win.
Right, I think
and of course
that's
she
more of
got snubbed for that. So.
She got replaced by herself in that category.
You literally just trampled on your own feet. All right, not literally. I understand. I made a figurative thing, but do you?
I like your preemptive response to people who will be making fun of you in the comments.
Yes, I know. Look, I'm just trying to get ahead of the curve. Be
Listen,
self-deprecating.
no one gave him crap for that. Literally.
No. But it's on the way, I'm sure. The Revenant also won Best Drama at Golden Globes. Now that one didn't surprise me as much because it's the Hollywood Foreign Press, and again, we're talking about dozens of foreign journalists based in LA. I think it was a little surprising that Jennifer Lawrence now is, Joy didn't really seem to go anywhere, and yet now she's, I think it just speaks to the fact that they love her,
Well, I think what might be different is that it's she was in the comedy right before and at the Golden Globes,
and
now
in the Oscars now.
Yeah, now she's in just the full Best Actress pool, and maybe they'll go again for her, but I have a feeling that it would be someone like Cate Blanchett or some of those other.
Or Brie Larson.
Or Brie Larson.
Brie Larson won at the Globes as well. So I think the Golden Globes, I can't say there was any real surprises there, but if Hollywood talent was scared of Ricky Gervais roasting them, oh boy, this year, wait till Chris Rock gets up there. Because he really, he's sharpening his knives right now. Let's move on actually from the awards race, because this is going to be dominating the conversation for quite, at least for the next 5 weeks.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some sad news. We found out today.
Worst birthday present ever. I think. Will go down in history for Jim Baker.
It's my birthday today.
Did we mention it's his birthday?
Woke up to some sad news today that Alan Rickman, beloved actor, British actor, died at age 69 from cancer, just days after David Bowie died at the age of 69 after cancer. Now, Alan Rickman and Bowie, but Rickman was an actor, I think, for our generations, had an iconic role for each one. For my generation, he's always going to be Hans Gruber, one of the best bad guys ever in Die Hard. And then for your generation, and I think you
I did dress accordingly with my Deathly Hallows dress.
You've got the
yeah, my Deathly
tattoos,
Hallows
right?
tattoo as well.
He's Severus Snape. So let's talk a little bit about what it was about Alan Rickman that you liked, and about his roles, particularly Snape.
I mean, for Snape, that is a character that was already like one of the most interesting and complex characters in that source material, and Alan Rickman was able to just perfectly embody it. I think even before, when he was cast, before we saw him, we knew, oh, this is the perfect casting for Snape, and he just brought all of that complexity to that character throughout. And I think what's really interesting, he never read the books. Like, he just went off the script and talking to J.K. Rowling. But that, that's just a credit to who he was as a performer. And I think it's not, I mean, I also love him in Die Hard. I love him in Love Actually.
Galaxy Quest.
Yeah, like everything I've ever seen him in, he just brought that same, intense dedication to the role, and like a great understanding of how to make that character click. And I think that's why he has become an actor that we all adore so much, is because you can tell that it was always part of the craft for him. It was always doing the best job that he could do in those roles. But how about for you?
For I think everybody, Die Hard was the first thing you ever saw him in, and I believe he worked in like a tailor shop or something. Like he was basically
he got it
like
2 days after he moved to LA.
He was like a struggling stage actor. Like, he wasn't really going anywhere. He was, I think 40 maybe or something at the time, but he was an actor with no real like great career going when he got the role in Die Hard. And remember, Bruce Willis was a TV actor, so this Die Hard was a movie that a lot of people passed on. It wasn't this sort of like, this is going to be the big thing. People weren't sure about it, and it was being made fun of because of the name, because it sounded like The Battery, So it had a lot of strikes going against it. And of course, when you watch the movie, it's fantastic. Ironically enough, I was on the 20th Century Fox lot last night, and I was talking the person I was with.
That would be Wednesday night, because we're recording this on Thursday on Jim's birthday.
And we're walking across 20th Century Fox lot, and there is the building that served as Nakatomi Tower for Nakatomi Plaza, and just said how much it never gets old seeing that thing, especially at night.
And that's the building that has a massive mural on the side of Bruce Willis in Die Hard.
It's just like you can't not get excited when you walk past that. I think and then to wake up and read the news about Rickman, I was like, oh my God, I was just talking about that film last night. But his character in that could have just been a mustache twirling bad guy, but he made him urbane. He kind of invented well, no, he didn't. I guess it was, Bond villains had done this, but the urbane, well-read, articulate, almost businessman-like villain who could sit there and talk to you about your tie or something he read in Time magazine, and then shoot you in the head. He was and then his ability, like Bill Clay, and passing himself off as this other guy and hiding his accent and playing cowardly. It's like he was great in that. You were just like, and just even that last shot of him falling off the building, the face he makes is like, come on, that gif is just going to be always there,
I think what made it better too is he was just like a class act of a human being.
Yeah.
Like, he was always very humble and kind.
People loved him.
And did you have a chance to interview him?
I never actually had a chance to interview him. I'm trying to remember if I ever saw him at an event. I don't think so. My sister actually met him in a department store in London, and he was just there shopping, and she just couldn't believe it, because she loved him in Love Actually and loved him in Die Hard, I guess, as well. But she loved other movies that he was in, and so she had a wonderful kind of exchange with him. You were able to give him an award once.
Yeah, I am a big Harry Potter fan, and always have been. And right when I was getting sort of my start, I was working at MTV News, and I was like the Harry Potter, super fan and expert on our group. And so for when the last movie, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 came out, we put together this Harry Potter World Cup that was essentially like March Madness, like the 64 characters, and fans will vote who they think the best character in Harry Potter is, and we would present the award. We were live streaming the final premiere in New York, and Severus Snape won. And again, I think that's like a testament to Alan Rickman's performance. He beat out Ron Weasley. There were a lot of really, really mad
Blood
Rupert
on the walls now,
Grint
people.
fans. Yeah. But so at the red carpet, at the premiere, you know, we made sure we need Alan Rickman to come to us. We had this massive trophy made for him, and I was the person who presented it to him. You can see my hands and arms and voice sort of off screen in this video.
About that exchange
no, and
whatsoever.
it was just like, that's the only time that I've ever had a chance to even interact with him, and it was like this tiny, small way of giving back something to him, like to say thank. Even though, you know, I of course voted for him, but it wasn't ultimately my say. There were like 8 million votes, but still, it was like I was the one presenting this award, giving it to him, and his reaction was, "Do I have to put this in my carry-on luggage?" And he was just like so sort of surprised.
Oh, look, that's a
overwhelmed
legitimate
by it.
logistical
I
question.
know, yeah. But it was just like a very special thing, and still one of my, before today, you know, if I was to pick like my 5 coolest things I've ever had a chance to do in this industry, that would be one of them.
That's awesome.
And, yeah, it's special.
Well, he was a wonderful actor, and it seemed like a lovely man, so he will be very deeply missed. We want to hear from you guys. What was your favorite Alan Rickman performance, favorite character you played?
Favorite
Just
memory?
your general thoughts. Yeah, memory about him. Let us know in the comments. Other sad news this week, David Bowie passed away, and while he is an icon of the music industry, you know, he also made a contribution to cinema, and you know, I think a lot of people, they will always remember him from Labyrinth, but you know, he was in The Man Who Fell to Earth, and I think for me,
Temptation of Christ,
The Last Temptation of Christ is
Zoolander.
The Prestige, but I think that the role of his, that as much as I loved him in The Prestige, I would say probably Last Temptation of Christ, because him as Pontius Pilate was really offbeat, interesting casting. And yeah, so he was just, he was a one-of-a-kind guy, and a wonderful artist, and he will also be very missed. Let's move on to more pleasant news. And by pleasant news, I mean Star Wars. And Star Wars is nothing if not pleasant. Now, we have some quotes this week. We just want to talk about Colin Trevorrow, director of Star Wars Episode 9 and Jurassic World, said recently, he was asked about Rey's origins and the theory that we talked about last week about, is Obi-Wan Kenobi Rey's grandfather? To which he replied, he said, I've seen all the theories, and you know, I have to practice how to answer these questions. This is Jim performing as Colin Trevorrow. What I do know is that we're going to make sure that the answer is deeply and profoundly satisfying, because Rey is a character that is important in this universe, not just in the context of The Force Awakens, but in the entire galaxy, and she deserves it. And so we'll make sure that answer feels like something that it's something that happened a long time ago, far away. We're just telling you what happened.
Most important to
Curious
you
answer.
was that he didn't say yes or
deny
no.
it.
Which I don't necessarily think is confirmation.
Yeah.
I think it's him saying, I'm not going to say one way or another about anything.
Yeah.
Because we, obviously, the brain trust behind the new Star Wars trilogy is being very protective
they
of
would
the
whack him.
story. Yeah, they would kill him, and they would have to find
that
a
would
new
be
one.
the end of it.
Yeah, so I don't think that was a confirmation or a denial, but it's nice to know that they consider that a really important part of the lore that they're creating and that they want to do it justice.
Well, there was even better news for Rey this week. Why don't you tell the folks about what they can
I'll
expect?
be the one breaking it. Yeah, I mean, there had been a lot of talk about how Rey was not in a lot of the toys that came out for The Force Awakens. So it was announced that she will be heavily featured in the new batch that is coming out, which I think is awesome.
She's also getting into Monopoly as well.
Yeah, she's getting into Monopoly after the fan backlash to her not being in there. The hero of this new story.
JJ was peeved about that too.
Yeah,
Abrams,
there was a Television Critics Association press tour this past week, and JJ was there promoting a couple projects. And one of the first, I was there. I was not there with JJ though. It actually was one of my friends, Natalie Abrams at Entertainment Weekly, was so happy she got to be the person to ask JJ about the toys, and that he gave such an awesome answer. But yeah, I mean, I think it's really cool. Listen, like no matter what your stance on the issue is, and I know there's a whole gamut out there, Rey is the main character of The Force Awakens, and she is awesome.
She's the new Luke Skywalker.
And she is like, she's an action figure that I want to have. She's an action figure that everyone, boy, girl, man, woman, should have if they want that character. It shouldn't be a lack of availability that prevents you from doing that. And so maybe they should have done it in
Captain
the first
Phasma
run.
shouldn't be the only female character that gets toys.
Right.
Let's see what. Colin Trevorrow also addressed that George Lucas petition. I just want to talk about that George Lucas petition. Let's see, their fans want the same guy that they raked over the coals for the prequels to come back to direct Episode 9. Really, this is...
the petition was that they didn't want Colin Trevorrow to be
they wanted him replaced by... They were like, hey, basically, no offense, but you're not right for this. We want George Lucas. George Lucas, who's really had nothing terribly good to say about Force Awakens. He didn't diss it entirely, but George Lucas, who also referred to Disney glibly as white slavers,
apologizing
before having to apologize, $4 billion later. I just think that Lucas petition thing. This is kind of the fan stuff that fans sometimes do the most ridiculous things. Like there should be a show like that. Like they used to have kids say the darndest things.
Yeah, fans do the darndest things. Yeah.
So I'm just saying, Lucas petition people, it's ridiculous. Stop. Now here's a rumor that could potentially be spoilerish.
Switching from trilogy to anthology stuff.
Yes. A Star Wars story. This is potentially spoilerish, or it's just complete bull. You be the judge.
Take that as you will.
But the rumor is that I believe it's Making Star Wars is the site that's reporting it.
Which has been hit or miss, especially in terms of Force Awakens rumors.
They have found, some assets and stuff like that visually, like images that panned up. But Darth Vader might be in Rogue One, since it is a prequel, rumor. And that he's kind of like the heavy in the movie, and not just that they'll have obviously a new actor playing Vader in the suit, but that James Earl Jones is back to do the voice, and that they've meticulously recrafted Vader's suit as just how it looked in A New Hope.
How do you feel about that?
I think when a character dies, they should stay dead, but we do have a young Han Solo prequel, and we're going to talk about those casting rumors. Nobody really in that batch that jumps out at me that I like. I think bringing Vader back in, we know what his arc is. We know he's going to fail in the movie. Why? Why are we... Just because you can have Vader on something that you can sell, I guess. To me, it actually turned me off of the movie a little bit.
Me as well. I mean, we talked a lot about, with The Force Awakens, how as much as we enjoyed it, I personally enjoyed everything new that was brought to the movie instead of it retreading on A New Hope. And so I think with Rogue One, even though we are going to be traveling back in time to a period of time that we do know something about, which is the rebels trying to steal the Death Star plans, I would still like it to feel like it's its own story. And I think bringing Darth Vader in, especially if it's in like a key role, which, I mean, again, this is still a rumor, we don't really know. I think that could feel like it has the same problems as The Force Awakens, where it's like, okay, we're doing this again, especially when we're all emotionally at this different place where we're viewing Vader through Kylo Ren's eyes, with also the context of his journey.
I want to apologize for those who are just listening. I've not been ignoring you, Terry. I forgot to write down the actors up for young Han Solo, but I think I actually can remember it off the top of my head.
Ansel Elgort, Miles Teller, Dave Franco.
Embry Cohen, I think, from the kid from Brooklyn, and then Jack Rayner from Transformers: Age of Extinction.
Yeah, I think, and there are many more names as well.
Logan Lerman.
Essentially, like they all look the exact same.
And then this younger TV guy whose name escapes me right now. I think the only one of them, none of them look or seem like Han Solo to me. Miles Teller's a talented actor, but I don't want him as Han Solo. He's not Han Solo.
I think Ansel Elgort maybe has the look of someone who could grow into Han Solo, but that
actor just rubs me the wrong way. I don't know. There's something too.
And also, I saw someone say this online too, so I'm sort of copying the sentiment, but I agree with it. I would rather have a relative unknown.
Yeah.
I would rather not have someone who's already been attached to another franchise, or we already know, or we already have a certain understanding of their performance attached to it.
Yeah.
I would rather have someone who's just a great unknown who just really nails it.
Kind of like a guy named Harrison Ford once upon a time. I think Jack Rayner kind of looks a bit like young Harrison Ford. Not terribly so, but also he's Irish, so he's got my vote there.
But at the same time, I mean, maybe we're completely wrong, and Ansel or Miles would
or this is all just names that you leak while you're trying to sign a Hemsworth. You know?
I don't want a Hemsworth either.
I know, I don't either. I'm just saying. But the UK guys have been talking about this quite a bit too in their podcast, so you could check out their thoughts. None of these names strike me as somebody I want as Han Solo. I would. This is to me is like the problem when you announce a release date for a movie, especially about an iconic property or character, and now you have to scramble actually make sure you get the right elements. You really should try and maybe find that first. I kind of get it's kind of the same question mark for me as I only saw Tom Holland in How We Live Now. Mm-hmm. And so I have no real understanding of what he'll bring to the role of Spider-Man, but that was another one where it's like, iconic character, we got to fill it now because we got a movie and a release date and all this sort of stuff. I hope it works out because now you're kind of stuck with this person. Based on just that batch, I would say keep looking for your Han Solo.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, we also should do a plug. If for whatever reason us dedicating a third of this show isn't enough Star Wars for you, definitely check out Rebel Base, which is our IGN UK team, full dedicated Star Wars podcast.
Oh, yeah.
They are all awesome. It is awesome.
Yep.
You're all awesome.
If you need somebody to loop the voice, I can do it. Look, I'll be willing to. I'll Botox this shit. I'll get a scar.
Listen.
I'll do it. I'll lose weight. I'll do whatever you need. So, moving on from Star Wars, just mentioning something that was announced earlier this week. Joshua and I already had a conversation on this, but Ryan Coogler is officially announced director of Creed to direct Black Panther, and perfect choice. Mm-hmm. I think he brings everything to the table that you need for that.
Yeah, and he's already proven that he can take an established franchise, give it a unique voice.
And get snubbed at the Oscars.
Get snubbed at the Oscars. So what more can you ask for? Yeah, I think anyone who's seen Creed will agree that he is not only a great director for Black Panther, but a great director for anything.
He's not even 30. The dude is
I know, he's a baby.
Such a bright future ahead of him. Let's talk about, speaking of futures ahead of them, let's talk about some franchises here. Let's start with Mad Max, because there was contradictory reports this week from George Miller on the future of Mad Max, and he said, the quote going around was that he said, no more Mad Max movies, which took a lot of people by surprise because he had been talking up the sequels that he wants to do. What he came back then today and said was that, no, that was a garbled quote taken out of context, that he was on a red carpet press line, and what he said was basically no more Mad Max movies right now. He wants to do something else and then come back to it. These movies take a lot of time, yada yada. So there's still hope for Mad Max. I'm not holding my breath for it. I mean, if it wins Best Picture, if he wins Best Director, I'm sure they'll move heaven and earth to get it to happen. But these are very time-consuming movies.
Yeah, and I think that's what people went back to when he made the comment about no more Mad Max. And we're all like, wait, what? But he's also talked about how it's a very long process and how he's open to other directions, having other
3 years
directors
of
coming in.
post-production on Mad Max.
And I mean, for anyone who is following that was like one of the most troubled productions ever. They had to like move location and all this stuff. There were all these rainstorms. It was just like basically a hellish
I mean, rumor has it there was no love lost between Charlize and Hardy.
until afterwards, I'm guessing,
Yeah.
when they were like, oh, hey, but I think the biggest surprise about Mad Max was that it was a great, fully formed movie based on all the trouble that they had.
Yeah.
So I do not begrudge him not wanting to immediately jump back in and do it. But he did say that he was open to having other directors come in and like take their own stab at it. Which I think that
would be interesting if you did take the Star Wars approach, where you're like, okay, I built the sandbox, a sandbox really, because get it, it's post-apocalyptic.
No one got it before you.
So I think that would be fun. Let somebody else be out there sweating their ass off in the desert. You just go cash your check, George. You earned it. Now, Pacific Rim 2, though, on the other hand, Guillermo del Toro saying this week, it's not dead. We're just, because he's probably going to go and do Fantastic Voyage remake. I really just think Guillermo needs to let go of Pacific Rim 2. Don't let this become your next At the Mountains of Madness. Just like you're such a creative, wonderful director. Just move on. Pacific Rim is okay. I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't need a sequel.
I love Guillermo. We've talked at length about, issues Guillermo may be having in Hollywood.
Yeah.
I think that he is a great ideasman, and he's said so many projects in the past. The Mountains of Madness is one. His Haunted Mansion movie is another. That I've just gotten so excited about that never pan out. If he does a thing where I know that James Cameron wasn't necessarily working on other movies in the time between Avatar 1 and Avatars 2, 3, and 4, whenever they may happen. But if Guillermo did a similar thing where like a decade later he came back and made a Pacific Rim 2, I wouldn't complain. But I think that he should just focus on continuing to figure out what he can do to make a Hollywood movie connect as well as Pan's Labyrinth.
Or just think about your legacy too. That's one of the things I do respect about Tarantino is he makes sure every film counts. He's like, I want a body of work that speaks for it. He's not just taking a job for the sake of a job.
But I don't think that Guillermo would be doing Pacific Rim 2
for the
sake of anything other than
he
he is very
it.
passionate about it. And that's his world too.
Yeah. So, but
I still want At the Mountains of Madness.
I would rather him try and go do that, but until his movies start making real bank, that ain't gonna happen. Also, Legendary Pictures, I just want to mention, was purchased this week by Wanda Chinese conglomerate, and they own AMC theaters as well. So they got a big old influx of cash coming in there now. It'll be interesting to see, and they've the production company behind Crimson Peak and Pacific Rim and stuff. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to see how they work, or if they work with Guillermo in the future. I'm sure they will. Now, another franchise.
That got me really excited when we were talking about it earlier.
Narnia ain't dead. In fact, Narnia
is itching for a reboot.
I guess like Aslan, it's going to come back from the dead. Did I get that right? I never read the books.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, he's basically Jesus, so you're pretty much spot on.
And I was raised Catholic, so I know the Jesus story. So Silverchair, producer Mark Gordon, saying that they are going to do it, but it's basically going to be a full reboot.
Yeah.
New casts, some new characters, new direction.
Yeah, he said new characters, which I was like, I mean the stuff that's in the book, right?
So, you're the Narnia kind of fan here. What do you think? First of all, what do you think of that series? Do we need Narnia to continue? And what do you think about these kind of the thoughts on Silverchair here?
Yeah, the Silverchair was the book that freaked me out the most. In fact, I don't even I read those books a whole lot when I was younger and have not really touched them since. But I remember the silver chair was the one that always was like, this one's little bit like creepy and weird. Yeah, I loved The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I thought that when I saw it and it came out, I was like super on board with it. It introduced me to Tilda Swinton, who, like, if I had seen before, she's such a chameleon actor, had never stuck out to me like she did as the White Witch.
She should play David Bowie in the inevitable.
Oh, I thought you meant me.
biopic.
I was like,
No.
yeah,
No,
yes,
David
Tilda would be, and yeah, I think they were friends as well. So
Why am I not surprised by that? Yeah.
Prince Caspian was whatever. Voyage of the Dawn Treader was my favorite book. I never even ended up seeing the movie. So
I actually liked the movie better than the other ones. I thought the first Narnia movie just seemed like a live-action Shrek movie to me. And which is the same guy who made Shrek made it, but like it had that same sort of, everything was just that little bit too green, a little bit too animated, you know?
It's funny, actually, now that I'm thinking, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe also had James McAvoy in it as the fawn, if you remember. Anyway.
Yeah, I think that was the first time I noticed him in something was that.
I think those movies were a case of like that genre evolving faster than the movies that they were making, and so they stopped being relevant very quickly. So I am all for them trying another way to bring it to the big screen. But I think at the same time, what ended up happening a little bit was with that, and the trouble that you get into with these later Narnia books is that they are so tied into C.S. Lewis's like religious ideals and stuff. When you get to the last battle, you're like, what is this orangutan and donkey? And like, what do you mean?
That's usually stuff I just hear in Mexico.
Yeah,
That's
what I'm saying is like me as like a preteen Jewish girl who had no knowledge of Christianity was like, what do you mean they've all been dead the whole time? And like,
spoiler,
there's like a heaven thing. I don't know. It just got really, this is, sorry, yes.
No, now I'm really curious. So
no, the
was
last
it like
battle,
Lost then?
No, it's like they all go, it's like Earth and heaven. Anyway, it all went over my head. It all went over my head, so I was very confused. But my point being, and sorry to everyone who I spoiled the Narnia franchise to, I know, it only just was released, so you know.
So wait, Narnia was actually heaven? Was that what it was supposed to be?
No, just read a synopsis.
Okay, see now I actually am interested. And I'm like, wait a minute, they were Shyamalan-ing me this whole time?
I think not until. We'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it after the podcast. I don't need to spoil it for everyone else I met. Anyway, I think that it might be the same thing as like The Golden Compass, where they tried to adapt those movies and leave all the religion out of it when Philip Pullman wrote the His Dark Materials series as a reaction to just how much Christianity was in the Chronicles of Narnia. And I think that if you are going to reboot it, you need to be cognizant of that. You need to find a really great way to
the spirit of the piece and the actual author's intent.
And I think you can't leave it out of it, but you also probably shouldn't make something that is shoving that down people's throats. Yeah, so
movies, I mean, unless they go full on and just essentially proselytize, you know.
I think there's a challenge ahead of them, but I think that as they're getting to stuff like the Silver.
Mel Gibson directed it. No, seriously.
Well, he did come out of hiding for the Golden Globes, and that was funny. But yeah, I will say, sorry, I'm rambling. I'm just so excited to talk about the Chronicles of Narnia. I think that they do have some challenges ahead for the Silver Chair, and if they keep doing it, and like The Horse and His Boy and all those other stories.
Wait, there's one called the Horse and His Boy.
Yeah, we're gonna do a whole deep dive into Narnia after this. That didn't have any of the main characters in it either. It was, Anyway, I think that it's time for a reboot for that series if they are going to keep doing it.
All right. We want to hear your thoughts on what should they do in these particular franchises? Should some of them continue? Should they just pump the brakes on them?
Am I the only one who completely missed all the religious allegories in the Chronicles of Narnia as a kid?
I bet you're not. But let us know, and you can also either tell us via the comments or via email at keepinitreal@ign.com. I just want to read a reader email that came in last week from Danny for Chris Carl. I know Chris isn't here though. I just thought this
better be watching.
Sorry to see you go, dude. Got so used to yourself and Jim's dulcet tones. Best duo since Cagney and Lacey. Anyway, all the best for the future. Loyal listener, Danny. Danny, thank you for that. It was very kind. And then we have a reader email question for you, Terry.
Ooh, for me.
Yeah, from Brian, who can't. It's a very long email, so I'm not going to get into all of it. But he said, firstly, on your previous podcast on Force Awakens, Miss Terri Schwartz, you got the
Nervous.
full
Oh my
salutation
gosh.
here, said that she was, quote, looking forward to a really weird and really different episode 8. I was wondering if she, along with the rest of the Keepin' It Real staff, could expound upon that for me. While I would love to see something unique and different, I fear that the lessons that will be learned from Star Wars Episode 7 will be to follow the formula. I don't see a lot of room, given the questions left unanswered in 7, for Rian Johnson to take the franchise in a new direction for Episode 8.
I think that is a very fair point. Obviously, this movie is now the biggest movie opening domestically. It's made over $800 million. It's third in the global box office.
Yeah.
It probably won't beat Titanic and Avatar, but who knows at this point?
Just on that note, it's not doing as great in China, or it won't end up doing as great in China as they were hoping. It's new. Star Wars is new to China for a lot of people. This is their first Star Wars movie, and I guess it's not going over great with the younger audience there.
You know,
So
they're lost.
it'll
But
only make 150.
I think that it definitely is a fair point that the lesson that they learned from this movie is the formula works. But at the same time, a lot of what I've seen in the quotes that have been coming out from, J.J. Abrams and the other creators is sort of like they had to pay homage to the fans and do the heavy lifting to set up this new world in this movie. And to me, I feel like as much as Luke is going to hopefully be a central player here and Leia isn't going to be going anywhere, they do have an opportunity to take it in a different direction. And just looking at the directors, J.J. Ryan and Colin Trevorrow, Colin obviously did a great homage to Jurassic Park in Jurassic World. I think that was very much the intent of that movie, and so he could do the same in Episode 9. So of the three of them, I think Ryan has the longest leash to do something different.
Yeah.
And if you look at his body of work, like, why do you hire someone like Rian Johnson, who's so creative and has given us Brick and Looper and the Fly episode and Ozymandias on Breaking Bad, like these very specific projects that have
dark material too.
in dark material, and use him to just rehash familiar stuff. To me, like, you mentioned that there aren't, of the questions that are left, to me it's like, I want to delve into what the deal with Snoke is. I want to delve into the Jedi Temple.
Is he really 25 feet tall? Just answer that.
I don't know. Is he like 9? Yeah. I think even figuring out what the rebellion and Republic do next, what the First Order does
it's basically a
next.
stalemate. Okay, you blew up Starkiller Base. Yeah, well, they blew up the Republic. So you're kind of like you're all at ground level now with kind of a fresh slate of like,
And to me, like, what I'm sort of anticipating and what I think could be really cool is, like, imagine Luke's whole journey to Dagobah in Empire, but like if Dagobah wasn't a gross swamp planet and like something like rife with mythology and stuff, and really learning about the Jedi. That's sort of what I imagine this movie could be. And I think in that sense, it could be something different than what we've seen before.
Right.
And I love the weird of Rian Johnson. I love that he's able to like put that into
I want to see what kind of
so
like creatures will he come up with too, and sort of use that.
Which he isn't necessarily. He's not really like a creature.
No, but I'm curious, like a guy with that kind of sensibility of how to kind of tweak things a little bit, kind of turn situation. Like, what will he do? Kind of what. How playful will he get with that kind of stuff?
I just think that he's like a great character director.
I think you're going to get great performances.
Yeah, and I think, and like what people have said, I think it was John Boyega said this movie is a lot darker. I think
and
that
more
just
physical.
And more physical. Yeah, I think that just like plays a lot into their sensibilities, and if. The Force Awakens is sort of like a loss of innocence for some of those characters like Finn and Rey. We can see how they come to terms with that as they are very much enmeshed in this world.
Yeah, and yet separated on their own journeys. Again, I do hope though that it doesn't, speaking about, callbacks, that it isn't too much like Empire where it's just going to be like, I'm sure there'll be some sort of a cliffhanger, but I'm curious too, like Benicio del Toro's character.
Is going to be a villain.
If he's a villain, then what kind of, is he a Sith? Is he, what does he have to do with Snoke? Is he the one who's actually, they're saying Kylo Ren's training. Is he actually going to train Kylo Ren? Like, I'm just curious.
Because they did say, like, complete his training.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, listen, I think when we all found out that we were getting new Star Wars movies, as much as everyone just wanted it to get right, to get the franchise right, which a lot of people didn't feel like the prequels did. And I think The Force Awakens shows they know what people want. But if I said this again another time recently, but if the conversation coming into the movies was all about what's going to be the deal with Luke, Han, and Leia, I feel like the conversation coming out is, oh my God, what's next for Rey and for Finn and for Poe?
Yeah.
And don't ruin that by just retreading on previous things.
Yeah,
and I think
keep
that
us
everyone
surprised.
involved is
Don't let us
smart
just
enough to do
see,
that.
oh, okay, this is going to be the same arc as, you know, so-and-so.
Yeah,
and
what's
all
the
that.
Cloud City of this?
Yeah,
and, you
yeah.
know,
It
what's the
needs-
Battle of Hoth?
It needs to divorce itself now more from the
Even if
tropes
it
of
does,
the original.
and I think it will come back to, you know, the Jedi-like sensibility with Colin in Episode 9.
Well, that'll about...
That's a great question. Thanks for
It is, right? Thank you. Again, send us your thoughts and emails at keepinitreal@ign.com. That's going to do it for this week's show. You can follow us on Twitter at Terri_Schwartz, at Jim Vavida, no underscore. Send me a happy birthday greeting. It's
Even
fine.
though it'll be a day late, but that's
You know,
okay.
I'll take it. I'll take it. It's okay. It's all good.
It's only your birthday one day a year.
I know, right? Well, or unless you lie, you know, my grandfather, we were never quite sure what his birthday was. He wasn't quite sure. He was born in the country, old hill country in Ireland, and so we had 2 birthdays for him a year. So maybe I'll just adopt my grandfather's day and just have a couple of birthdays just to be sure.
As I said to you this first thing this morning, you look great for 28.
I'm just saying.
And you
know.
also celebrated it with interviewing William Shatner today.
I know, right?
For the Star Trek
I kicked
50th
it off
anniversary.
by you talking to William Shatner, Captain Kirk, man. That's, you know what? Pretty good damn birthday. So on that note, on that nice happy note, thank you as always for watching and listening. For all things movies, keep it here on IGN.